NFL Week 3 predictions. It's time for you guys to get pissed off with me because the New York Giants, boy, they're about to get crashed by the San Francisco 49ers. Like, the 49ers should manhandle the New York Giants. No Saquon, offensive line looks crappy, the defense doesn't look that good. I mean, it just looks like the New York Giants are headed for an implosion this season because what we saw against Arizona and week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys is definitely really concerning if you're a fan of the New York Giants. And the San Francisco 49ers look like one of the best teams in the NFL. They beat the Rams. Brock Purdy's playing pretty well. That defense is playing outstanding. I think the Giants are going to struggle to even move the ball past the 50 in this game. I like the 49ers to win, and I like them to do it in convincing fashion. 27-10 is my final score prediction in this game. Tennessee takes on the Cleveland Browns. I don't know how I feel about this game because this game can go either way. Deshaun Watson has played mid, basically. I don't think he's played bad, but he hasn't played great. He's played mid. And Ryan Tannehill, he's played mid too. He played terrible in week 1, and then he awoke from his slumber, I guess, and remembered how to be a good quarterback, and he played good last week against the Chargers, albeit it was the Chargers, but I'm not going to discredit him for having a shape back performance. Who's going to win this game? I don't really know. It could really go either way. I'm going to take the Browns to win. I really like their defense. I definitely believe that the Browns defense is legit with defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. I think that Tennessee offensively, they're going to struggle. The Browns are going to have a really good run defense in this game, and their secondary is a mismatch against the wide receivers of Tennessee. Outside of DeAndre Hopkins, who was dealing with an ankle injury last week, they don't really have nobody who I really think is a threat against this Browns secondary. Treylon Burks, I don't really think he does too much. Chigo Okonkwo, I haven't even heard dude's name be called at all this season up to this point. I like the Browns. This is going to be a tough game. It probably won't be a lot of points scored. It'll probably be one of those old school, smash mouth, defensive, dominated games. I'll take the Browns. 13-7 is my final score prediction in this game. Steelers taking on the Raiders. I like the Steelers. The Raiders suck. They got to win against the Broncos, but if you didn't watch the Broncos against the Commanders, let me just give you a quick recap. The Broncos are not good. Their defense got shredded by Washington's offense. Washington at one point has scored 20-something points unanswered consecutively? I mean, that offense was rolling. I mean, the Raiders, they got that win against Denver, but they got absolutely trounced by the Buffalo Bills. I don't think the Steelers are going to lose to the Raiders. I think they do bounce back, and even if the offense does struggle, this defense is good enough that they should be able to shut down the Raiders offense with Jimmy Garoppolo and with how bad that offensive line is. We talk about how bad the run game is for Pittsburgh. Josh Jacobs, go look at his statistics in the rushing department last week and come back to me about what you think about the Steelers run game, because the run game we saw from the Raiders last week, at least when it came to Josh Jacobs, non-existent. Falcons versus the Lions. This is one of those games that I'm really excited to watch because I want to see if Atlanta is as good as what their record shows. Their record shows they're 2-0 right now. And they're coming off a come-from-behind win against the Green Bay Packers. A game that Desmond Ridder didn't play that great. The stats show you that he had an okay performance, but if you watch that game, dude damn near threw 4 interceptions. The Lions, they got a really solid defense, at least from a talent standpoint. And their secondary is pretty solid, even though they are going to be without Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for the rest of the year. They still do have Brian Branch, and I like their cornerbacks in Emmanuel Mosley and Cam Sutton. The Falcons, their defense has looked better than what it did last year. But if you're a Falcons fan and you're really trying to figure out just how improved this defense, you're going to get a really good opportunity to see it against one of the best offenses in the NFL. The Lions, I'm picking them to win. I don't got nothing against Atlanta. I probably think Atlanta wins the NFC South based on what I've seen out of the Panthers and everybody else in this division. I kind of have more faith in Atlanta than I do all the rest of the teams in this NFC South division. But the Detroit Lions, I just think they're a little bit too much for Atlanta to handle. If Atlanta can't run the football against Detroit, they got no shot in this game. Detroit is one of those teams that they're capable of being able to hang 30 on you with ease. And if Atlanta can't keep Detroit's offense under wraps, they're not going to be able to hang around with them. Atlanta doesn't have the offense that's built to come from behind down multiple possessions. They're not one of those teams that can go tick for tack for you if this game ends up leading to be a shootout. They're one of those teams that they want to keep things close, and they got to be able to run the football because Desmond Ridder, he's a solid game manager. But when you're facing a high-octane offense, game managers most of the time, I don't really think they're great when it comes to winning high-scoring affairs. They're good when it comes to winning games that are low-scoring. If you want somebody who can take care of the football, somebody who's not going to lose you the game, Desmond Ridder's cool. But when you're trying to beat a team like the Lions that's capable of putting up 30, 40 a game, I think you need a little bit more juice out of your quarterback. Saints, Packers, I'm taking the Packers. The Saints are 2-0, but I think they're one of the worst 2-0 teams in the NFL. The Packers, I've liked what I've seen out of Jordan Love. I think they very well have hit on their third consecutive franchise quarterback. They went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and from Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. It looks like the trend continues with Green Bay continuing to find success at the quarterback position. Green Bay has a pretty good defense, even though their defense did kind of implode late against Atlanta. New Orleans, their defense is outstanding, but they don't really have an offense. We didn't see their offense do much against Tennessee, and their offense didn't really do too much against the Carolina Panthers last week until late in the game. Derek Carr, he hasn't been bad, but he's been as good as advertised. You know, I don't really think he's making the Saints better, but he's not losing them games like how Andy Dalton was with his interceptions and his turnovers. The Denver Broncos are going on the road to South Florida to take on the Dolphins. I'm taking the Dolphins to win. The Broncos, I don't think Russell Wilson is as bad as what people are saying he is. I thought that he played pretty okay against the Washington Commanders, but the offense just sputtered out late in that game. The Dolphins have one of the best rosters in the NFL. There aren't too many teams that have the talent that the Dolphins have on both sides of the football. Tua is playing some pretty good football, even though his performance against the Patriots was The Broncos, I just don't think they got any juice right now. I think they're going to fall to 0-3. The Minnesota Vikings are hosting the Chargers at home. This is one of the biggest games of this weekend. The loser of this game falls to 0-3. And their chances of making the playoffs become incredibly dim. And the winner of this game gets their first win of the season. I don't like Brandon Staley. I think he's the worst head coach in the league. They got an awful defense. He's a defensive-minded coach. The only way the Chargers are able to have a chance at winning games is because of Justin Herbert and this offense being able to put up a lot of points. Brian Flores, his defense has been pretty solid. Okay, I think that the Chargers offense, they're going to score some points, but I don't think they're going to have the success that they've had the first 2 weeks against this Minnesota defense. Minnesota doesn't have a crazy amount of talent defensively, but they're pretty well coached. They have a pretty good scheme. They send a lot of pressure. They're super aggressive, so they're not going to give Justin Herbert all day to just sit back and get a lot of big plays downfield. I'm going to take Minnesota to win. The Chargers look like the better team on paper, but I just don't trust Brandon Staley as a head coach. How the hell are they going to stop Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison? The offensive line is shit. We can admit that, but the Chargers offensively, that's the only thing that you can really count on. That's the only consistent variable about watching the Chargers play, is that the offense is going to show up. They're going to score a lot of points, but they're going to give up a lot of points. At least I can trust Brian Flores and company to get a couple of key stops here and there. I think Minnesota wins this game because they got the big coaching advantage, not just when it comes to head coach, but when you compare Minnesota's coaching staff to the coaching staff of the Chargers, I think Minnesota clears. The New York Jets face off against the New England Patriots after getting roughed up by the Dallas Cowboys. Are we going to see more offense out of New York? Zach Wilson, he didn't have a great stat line against Dallas. I don't think he played necessarily bad. It's just he was playing against the Dallas Cowboys. The Patriots got a good defense, though. A really good defense. And their offense, it looks way, way better with Bill O'Brien calling plays, which isn't really a surprise. And Mac Jones has looked pretty solid this year. I'm going to roll with the Patriots to get the win. Zach Wilson, he could be seeing ghosts in this game. We don't know just how improved Zach Wilson is. It's kind of hard to judge him based on the performance where the team that he was playing on was just completely outmatched by the Dallas Cowboys defense that was getting pressure on Zach Wilson. They were throwing a lot of confusing looks at Zach Wilson. Just a really hard game to get a really good read on just how improved Zach Wilson is in his third year as the quarterback for the New York Jets. But I like New England to win. I know they are playing on the road, but with how good that defense is and the fact that unless New York can have success running the football, I don't think they're going to do too much offensively. Now, if the Jets defense, ends up forcing a couple of turnovers and they can get favorable field position for this offense, I can see them winning this game. The Bills take on the Commanders. It's easy to take Buffalo to win, right? But the Commanders are a team that's being really overlooked. They match up really well with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills destroyed the Las Vegas Raiders. It's the Las Vegas Raiders. So, how much can we really give the Buffalo Bills credit for destroying the Raiders because they're a bad team? They're playing against the Commanders. The Commanders have a really solid team. And they got a really good defensive line. And what's the biggest Achilles heel with the Bills' offense? Their offensive line is not that good. I don't think this offensive line is going to hold up against this Washington Commanders defensive line, especially with that man, Chase Young, kind of looking like he's returning back to the Chase Young that we saw during his rookie season when he won Rookie of the Year. Buffalo's defense is outstanding. Okay, not denying that. But with their offense, Josh Allen being turnover prone, that allows a team like the Commanders to be able to hang around in a game like this. I'm going to take the Commanders to win. Josh Allen, he's too reckless with the football, going up against a really good defense and a really good offensive line. I think we're going to see that carelessness come back in this game. Sam Howell, he'll have a tough game against a really good Buffalo Bills defense. But I think with how this defense can potentially play in this game, I think that the Commanders can come off with a victory and they can improve the 3-0 on the season. I'm taking the Jags over the Texans. I've been a little disappointed with what I've seen out of the Texans. I thought they would have been a little bit better defensively. Maybe it's going to take a little bit more time for DeMeco Ryans to be able to do everything that he wants to do schematically on defense, but I think the Jags just rolled the Texans in that game. CJ Stroud, he's going to have a good performance. The Jags defense isn't anything to brag about, but I like the Jags to get the win. 31-17 is my final score prediction. I'm taking the Ravens to beat the Colts. Anthony Richardson, he's dealing with a concussion. He left the game early last week. Gardner Minshew came in for him. We don't know if he's going to come back and play in this game or if he could miss this game. But either way, whether he plays or he doesn't, Baltimore is going to walk away with the victory. Baltimore's defense is way too tough to see Anthony Richardson having any success through the air. On the ground, It's going to be intriguing to see how the Ravens game plan for him defensively, but I don't think they're going to struggle against Anthony Richardson because they face a similar quarterback in Lamar Jackson in practice every single day. Plus, they got Tyler Huntley, who can also replicate Anthony Richardson in some ways. I like the Ravens to win, and I think they do it convincingly. Panthers versus Seahawks. It definitely feels as this is a must-win game for Carolina. And I know it sounds weird how I just said that. I meant to say it feels like this is a game that Carolina has to win. Because if they go 0-3, it's going to be incredibly tough to get back into the swing of that division. If, let's say, Tampa Bay goes 3-0 and they beat Philly, or New Orleans goes 3-0, Carolina getting out to a 0-3 start, not ideal. It definitely would be them digging themselves in a really deep hole. Seattle, they're playing at home. It's tough to beat Seattle at home. They just got a better overall team than the Panthers. Unless Bryce Young just plays like a man possessed, which he could, because Seattle's defense has severely underperformed. This defense has way too much talent to play the way that it has. I like Seattle to get the win overall, though. I just think for the Panthers, they're just out of sorts right now. They don't really have identity. They got a good defense, but offensively, receivers can't separate. Offensive linemen don't know how to fucking block. It's just a mess down there in Carolina. The Seahawks, I think they're going to win this game fairly easily, and I don't really think it's going to be all that close, man. The Seahawks just got a really good team, and the Carolina Panthers, they just happen to have one of the worst teams in the NFL. Like, anytime Adam Thielen at, he's 32, 33 years old, is your number one wide receiver, you're in trouble. Like, you're in trouble. I think against the Seahawks, the Panthers, man, they're going to have a really hard time doing anything against the Seahawks, man. Just keeping it in the stack. Like, this defense should have a pretty good day getting pressure on Bryce Young. I just think it's going to be a mismatch in that game. Chicago taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. You talk about must-win games. If there's any team that needs to win more than anything, it's Chicago. And you got to do it on the road and the toughest environment in the whole entire National Football League. In Arrowhead, against Patrick Mahomes, Justin Fields is calling out coaches. He hasn't played good. The offensive line hasn't played good. The wide receivers, they've looked impressive. DJ Morris looked really good, but that's about it. Justin Fields, you trust him in this game? I love me some Justin Fields. He's my favorite player in the NFL, but it's kind of hard to keep making excuses for him. And it's hard to see the Bears winning this game against Kansas City. I just don't see how Kansas City loses to Chicago unless Justin Fields has a masterclass performance where he just picks apart this Chiefs defense. This is the best Steve Spagnuolo defense that I've seen in all his years that he's been the DC for Andy Reid and KC. This defense, they got multiple guys who can get pressure on the quarterback, not just Chris Jones. He's probably going to have just 2-3 sacks alone by himself in this game. They're going to be able to keep Justin Fields in the pocket, limit what he can do as a runner. And defensively, Chicago, they're not good on that side of the ball either. I think that the Chiefs are going to win this game, but I don't know if it would be by a comfortable margin. I could see this game coming down to the wire. I just think that the Bears are going to come in with a lot of fight. This is going to be desperation mode for them. I don't think they want to go 0-3, so there's going to be added motivation. Justin Fields just called out the coaching staff, so we'll see if they start getting back to what was working last year when Justin Fields was having success. Dallas is going to beat Arizona. We pretty much know this. The question is, by how much are they going to beat Arizona? Is Arizona actually going to have a competitive game against the Dallas Cowboys? Arizona, their last 2 games have come down to the wire. They've looked like a team that doesn't look like they're trying to tank for Caleb Williams. If Arizona can give the Dallas Cowboys a competitive game, I will look at Jonathan Gannon with a different perspective than what I did prior to this season. Prior to this season, I thought it was a bad hire. I didn't think it was going to work. But if Arizona can compete against Dallas and keep this thing being a one-possession game, I kind of would have my opinion changed about how I feel about their head coach. Philadelphia is taking on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, they're 2-0. Y'all know that? Yeah, like they got wins over the Bears and the Vikings. Well, both of their wins are going up against teams that have no wins currently. They're going against a Philadelphia Eagles team that's better at every single side of the football, but they kind of aren't the same team that they were last year. They are missing their two coordinators who are now head coaches, and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown got into it last week, Thursday Night Football against the Vikings. I just think that Philadelphia, this definitely is an upset spot for them. We thought that week one kind of was a trap game against New England, and they struggled in that game, and they possibly could struggle against the Buccaneers. Todd Bowles is a defensive-minded coach. We know one thing about Todd Bowles, his defenses are always going to be up to par. But what about that Tampa Bay offense? How's this offensive line going to fare against one of the best defensive lines in the NFL? This is an offensive line that has multiple guys playing out of position. Tristan Wirfs is playing left tackle, previously played right tackle. They got a couple of guys on the offensive line out of position also. I want to see how this offensive line looks, and I want to see how Baker plays against the best defense that he's seen in the first month of his Buccaneers career. Yeah, the Vikings have a pretty solid defense. The Bears got one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but we're really going to see just how good Baker is against this Philadelphia Eagles defense that can get after you. They got really good players in the secondary. I like the Eagles to win this game. I think the Bucs could surprise some people. Philadelphia may not be able to blow them out, but I definitely do think they should avoid walking out with the loss. And lastly, I got the Bengals beating the Rams. If Joe Burrow doesn't play, I'm going to take the Rams. But even then, I'm not super confident in the Bengals winning this game. The Rams do have some players on offense. Puka Nacua, who I picked up in all my fantasy leagues, has been going crazy. Matthew Stafford is looking like an MVP candidate. The Rams, don't be surprised if they pull off the win. This is a big game for Cincinnati. It is one that I do trust them to win, but I could also see them dropping this game. This is it for my NFL Week 3 predictions. Let me know what you guys think about my picks down in the comment section down below.